Hey everyone, what up? Mad Kaiser here, and welcome to this 4th episode of my Ninja Gaiden review marathon with Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z. A game I dreaded on talking about, and this one has quite the infamous reputation. Now this game is essentially a spin-off and spearheaded by none other than Kaiji Inafune, a man who's very infamous for once dragging down Capcom in the 2010s for his push of Japanese games heavily appealing towards the West, and responsible with things like the infamous Devil May Cry DMC reboot, as also Mighty Number 9.
Wow, that was the worst piece of crap I've ever seen.
And this game I'm talking about was no exception towards that trend. And this was unveiled in 19th of September 2012, with this being a joint collaboration with Concept, who recently are closing down, as well as Spark Unlimited and Koei Tecmo. On June 6, a new trailer appeared on the Game Trailers TV that featured an FMV sequence with some snippets of actual gameplay. And then around on October 8th, it was announced that Ninja Gaiden Z will be released on both Steam, which will make it, oddly enough, the first time a Ninja Gaiden game would be on Steam. As well, Canadian book artist known as James Stokoe even created several art pieces for the game, and they would display them at the New York Comic Con. The game would also even have a tie-in webcomic comic published by Dark Horse Comics. It was also even announced that around on December 13, 2013, that even Beck from Mighty Number 9 would be a bonus playable character in the form as well DLC. Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z will release on 18th of March 2014 on both PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and PC, to a very appalling 43 to 50 on Metacritic, with many critics and fans giving it very negative reviews, and full criticism for its repetitive combat, difficulty, level design. How this game far distances itself from the series it was not once known for. Now this game sold around say 429,000 units worldwide, which was basically a disappointment and arguably the low point of the series. If Ninja Gaiden 3, the vanilla version, was the coffin for the series, then Yaiba would serve as the final nail of that said coffin. And to be blunt, it's really not easy to see why. Cause well, I played it. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie to you guys. This game is really bad in so many ways. So in this review, I'm going to cover and explain in detail of how this is not only the worst game in the entire series, but also one of the worst games I ever played. That said, let's have a zombie torso jump on us, get a Zuna dropped by Ryu, and ready our cyborg arm as we punch straight away into Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z. The story has our main lead, Yaiba Kamikaze, battle with the true main hero, Ryu Hayabusa, till of course he loses and gets brutally killed. And that's Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z, quite a short game, but still what we got was pretty cool. Here's what I would be saying, but unfortunately that's not the end of it. Not a long shot even. Because eventually he gets revived as a cyborg by an engineer named Miss Monday, led by her own boss, Del Gonzo, and him sent down to Russia where a zombie outbreak went viral, and also because this is the 2010s, and well, zombie games were all the rage back then, and so he has his newfound goal to track down and get revenge on Ryu Hayabusa. However, something else very sinister is afoot here. And that's the story, and well, it's trash. But hey, I guess that's on brand with the entire series in terms of storytelling. But it's also wildly bizarre, with the beginning of how Yaiba died, and it now quickly transitions him to now being alive. Which hey, I guess is a parallel to how Ninja Gaiden 1 handled it. But you kinda got an idea on how Ryu came back to life. But in this one, nope, you just get a brief explanation. Upon that, you also have just Yaiba doing errands for this Del Gonzo guy while also taking down zombies. Which yeah, I guess it's a natural step from going from taking down fiends, to soldiers, to alchemists, to gods, to now zombies. Because why the hell not, I guess. And this game really wants to focus on Yaiba's eventual revenge and rivalry towards Ryu, but in the end, it gets dropped for something else. So what's even the point of all of this, really? Then again, this game doesn't take itself relatively seriously at all, and I mean really, it does not. This game being just absolutely over the top with some very crass and just foul-mouthed humor that even Adi Shankar would find very appealing, and some other stuff. But then again, who cares about the story? As it's for the characters we all care about, and well, there's Yaiba, who's the titular lead, who's all gruff, deranged, and his mindset only focused on killing Ryu. In a way, he's basically the template for Jack Garland, so while Jack in that game is absolutely based and even has a very compelling arc, Yaiba here feels like that edgy kid being too cool for school and one-minded, that even he gets his ass kicked by Ryu on multiple occasions. To the point it makes me hard to even care or even jive with him. So yeah, with that, he's basically a bozo and a fraud in that. As for Miss Monday, well, she's nice and has nice banter and a cool dynamic with Yaiba. And as for Del Gonzo, well, who cares? Who really cares about him? However, the real stars of this awful mess would have to be Ryu Hayabusa, who actually feels more close to 1 and 2 than even Ninja Gaiden 3, even if he does share some semblance of 3's humanity. So yeah, he's still a badass. And also Momiji also makes an appearance here.
Oh yeah!
I'm never gonna live that down. Anyway, yeah, the story itself is just one I just don't really care about. As it's just going from level to level, which is, I guess, also on par with the course of the series. But, not gonna lie, the humor also displayed here can be hit or miss at times. But, at least the story isn't as insultingly terrible as, say, Ninja Gaiden 3. But outside of, say, Ryu's Izuna drop, which, by the way, is the best one in the entire series, and it even just exists in a cutscene alone.
Yeah!
A few inches later.
But overall, yep, the story exists. Now we get on to the graphics. And oh boy, does this game feel like a product of its time, alright. With Yaiba, they went for a more cel-shaded stylized approach with it using Unreal Engine 3, and it looks fine for what the game is going for. And you get some amazing cool cutscenes, especially the fights towards Ryu. Again, the whole Izuna drop is just a masterpiece. But you can definitely tell that this is still a smallest project, as you get mostly comic book stills here, which I guess looks kinda cool. The character models look good for what they're going for, but that's all I can say. The visuals also have these different shades of colors based on each level, and the UI looks a bit grungy, which I guess is pretty neat, but you can definitely tell this game came out in the 2010s, and in not the best way possible. At least the performance was really good here, with gameplay running at a good 60 FPS here, very nearly perfect even on PC. There's just only a few visual glitches here, and some crashes, absolutely made me rage, but for the most part, that part does actually run well, so I'll give it that to Yaiba, it does run really well. Now we get on to the gameplay, and oh god, I'm not looking forward to this at all. Okay, let's just get it over with. So Yaiba throws the traditional gameplay style of Ninja Gaiden, and goes for something else in terms of combat. With 3 of your face buttons basically having different attacks, one for your sword, your arm, and your flail. But also, your traditional jump is gone in place of dodging. And there's also both the block and perfect block. Upon that, there's also the execution, where you can send an enemy flying, and just at the last second, you get to execute them instantly. Though some bigger foes require QTE, and doing these will restore your health, and some will even let you grab temporary weapons from them. Next is also the Bloodlust, which is basically your standard L3 plus R3 move, where you become invincible after killing lots of enemies, and deal lots of more damage towards enemies and bosses till it runs out. And if you kill lots of enemies, you get to level up to unlock new skills from your skill tree. There's also things like on how various element types work with mixing together, like fire and electricity, as well as electricity and corrosion, or even fire and corrosion, giving you various effects to take down enemies. Though elements will also affect you as well, and there's also a dislodge system where when enemy forces grab you, you have to escape from them. And lastly, being able to grab weak zombies and throw them or even use them as weapons. So that's the general combat system, and it does have some neat ideas to make it especially interesting, while performing some executions that, I'll admit, do yield some satisfying results. However, that's all the positive I can say, so you know what, let's just rip the band-aid off and tell everything wrong with it. For the most part, this game is mostly just so damn easily and mindless, with various combos mowing down enemies with easy to little no consequence, making some very, very boring encounters. Not helped, but the enemy design is just absolutely lackluster, as it's all just zombies, with various types, from just normal fodder to torsos to regular ones to be executed, and slightly bigger elemental ones, and also clowns. And that also brings another issue, as while most of the enemies can be dispatched in like few seconds with no thought, the later ones become absolutely spongy and just take forever to kill them. But you feel like you can stunlock them for a while and hit the revenge value and then counterattack. Not help that your combos have no counselors whatsoever, so if you're in the middle of a combo and an enemy attacks you, you're bound to get hit. And also, things like the camera, especially towards having just some off-screen projectiles, rears its ugly head here. But the cream of the absolute crap would have to be the bosses, as there's just pretty much only 4 bosses of note, with various repeats, and every single one of them is just terrible, and all of them taking the same issues I had with the bigger foes, and just dialing that up all the way up to 11. All of them are just complete damage sponges, with your attacks doing chip damage at best. And even with the attacks that are telegraphed, if you're in the middle of a combo, you're screwed. Not only that, but they like to constantly spam ads that just drag out the fight even more. And the sad thing is, your bloodlust can demolish them in an absolute second. So the difficulty is absolutely butchered. All of them are just absolutely terrible, and arguably, they are easily some of the worst bosses in the entire series, which I know isn't a high bar because Ninja Gaiden is reputable for having some terrible bosses, but this is just absolutely bad. But the biggest offender of all of this would have to be the final boss. And you know what? I'm going to say this right now. This boss is even worse than the last final boss of Ninja Gaiden 3. How is even that possible? How could they have done it? How could they have made a boss even worse than the last one? The only boss I could say is good, I say, would have to be Ryu. But even then, that's not much. As while he is on the same level as you, and you can stagger him, but even then, there's still issues with that fight as well. The first fight basically throws elements at him, like that one Crash vs. Spyro fight, and the second one revolves around you throwing slugs at him. It's honestly just terrible, and easily, this game just, you know what? Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z is equally the worst gameplay in the entire series, no cap whatsoever. This game is even worse than the aspects of Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge. Honestly, just so bad.
You suck!
Now we get on to the level design and the rest of the gameplay, or what is to say. Now for the movement and general physics, it's also not good, as Yaiba basically controls like a walking sack, with how heavy he feels, and as for the levels, they're okay. They're just mostly linear with some secret pathways, and there's also a barrage of platforming segments and puzzles. Arguably more than Ninja Gaiden 2 and 3 combined, but however, again, it's not all good, with the former just being on rails, and also very janky in that regard. And as for the puzzles, well, it's just grab zombie and throw at random object. Ooh, isn't that exciting? Now we get on to the music. And believe it or not, Yaiba's soundtrack was done none other than Grant Kirkhope himself. Yeah, I'm not kidding at that fact. Anywho, for what it is, it's solid, being grungy with lots of techno and dubstep that does complement the edgy, I guess, weirdness out of this game. Even if not gonna lie, some of the songs are just absolutely forgettable, but even so, here's some decent tracks. Now as for the content, well, Yaiba has a mission mode which allows you to replay the chapters for your own sanity, I guess, and a mode that basically emulates the 2D style of Ninja Gaiden from the NES games in its own way, as well as also having the hard difficulties. And there's also DLC in the form of, well, Beck from the critically acclaimed Mighty Number 9 as a character. Yay. A standard run can take around, say, 6 to 8 hours, but if you do everything, and why do you want to do everything, I want to say, it takes you around, say, 12.5 hours. Which is, I can say, very short, and probably the best thing about this game as a whole. Oh, thank God we're finally here. Okay. Well, we're at the end here, thankfully. And I think you guys can tell from my tone of how I view this game as a whole. And unfortunately, it's all been really negative. And you know what? I'm actually astonished here on how bad this game really is. Even going by my low expectations, this game is really bad, as it's basically a betrayal and shares none of the core aspects of a Ninja Gaiden title as a whole. And this basically feels like an absolute consequence from Inafune really trying to make a Western title. It's really aged badly and really reeks of 2010s, with it being just a God of War clone. I was also going for the raunchy and crass humor, to really act cool, and even have zombies as enemies. Because back then, during the 2010s, zombies were the rave. Especially even Yakuza Dead Souls followed that trend. And look on how that turned out. No wonder this game killed the series initially. And look, I may have sounded a bit too harsh, because at the end of the day, it's a spin-off. It's not a new mainline game, and it's trying to do something different. But the problem is that this game feels far removed of being a Ninja Gaiden title. Honestly, if you just remove the title entirely, and just cut out Ryu and Momiji, you basically just have a completely original IP compared to other franchise spin-offs, where while they play slightly different towards their mainline games, they still had an identity that feels recognizable. And even if this game was its own unique thing, it'd still be pretty terrible, due to how bad the combat is, on how the gameplay is towards a lot of action games around that time, and even ones prior to this, especially towards the 2000s, with the art style and visuals also being dated. If you want to play a cel-shaded action game that oozes style in the right way, and just is so much fun, play Hi-Fi Rush. If you want an action game that involves badass executions and multiple weapons, and you can also feel like an absolute badass, play the actual God of War. And if you want to play a very cool and satisfying action game as a ninja that's actually challenging and fun and has Ninja Gaiden in its actual name, play actual Ninja Gaiden instead of this. But given the fact that both developers of this were shut down, it all lines up. So put bluntly, I don't recommend this game to anyone at all. Not for curiosity's sake even. It's not worth it. Please, spare yourselves the dignity and agony from this. I play this so you don't have to. That said, I'm going to give Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z 1 Miss Monday out of 5. Anywho, thank you guys so much for watching me tearing down this absolute trash heap. And let me know down in the comments if you were also an unfortunate soul that played this yourself. But however, with his death, his rebirth, as next time we'll be going through some old friends in a new light. So join me as we'll go to review both Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2 once again, with both Ninja Gaiden Sigma and Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2. And if you guys like what you've seen here, then please like the video, click the subscribe button if you're new, and hit the notification icon if you want to be excited for the next review for that yourself. I also have my socials, you can follow me on there, and I also have a special Patreon page if you want to add free videos and special goodies yourself. But with that said, special thanks to my patrons, and Mad Kaiser out.